I'm here with Vanessa Warner, manager of the Disabled Shooting Services with the NRA. First off, tell us about NRA's involvement with this competition and the National Veterans Wheelchair Games.
We come out to the games to help support the event, to oversee the safety on the range, and the NRA in general does a lot of work with PVA and helping to bring air rifle into the PVA chapters across the nation.
You mentioned a little bit about safety. There was a pretty long safety conversation to all the competitors before they started taking the guns out, setting them up, and getting ready. Tell us a little bit about the safety precautions taken in this. I understand with any event that uses live ammunition like this, there's going to be some safety concerns involved. What specifically about the Airguns event do you focus on as far as safety?
There are a lot of novice shooters here. Granted, they're veterans, but it's been quite a while since they've touched a gun in many circumstances. And so and when we give the safety briefing, when we change targets, we have to move downrange and get in front of the guns. So we're very strict about not touching any of the guns before we, either while we're downrange or before we move downrange.
Is there a specific instruction that you find yourself having to reiterate in events like this?
Yeah, don't touch the guns when I'm in front of them. A lot of people tend to think that an air gun isn't, since it's not a firearm, it's not necessarily as dangerous, which in theory is true. However, there's still a projectile coming out of the end of the muzzle and can gravely injure somebody if misfired in an unsafe direction. So pointing out to everybody that they're shooting at the black dots downrange, otherwise known as the targets, and to not shoot at the spectators behind them is always a way of getting somebody's attention. I try to put a little humor into it, kind of like the way some airlines do with their safety messages when you get on, because people pay attention more when it's out of the norm.
Tell us a little bit about some of the equipment that the competitors are using.
Well, PVA owns all of the Crosman Challenger 2000s, which are the rifles that they give out to people who don't have them to use. And then they have some adaptive equipment that is used to allow people with severe upper body disabilities to compete at an equal level as somebody without an upper body disability. We've got a shooting stand that has a spring in the center of it and a tripod base. And what that spring does is it prevents, or it helps the competitor by not having the competitor have to hold the gun up. The spring's wiggly, especially, the heavier the rifle, the more wiggly the spring, but it holds the gun up, so the competitor is still responsible for aiming, but they don't have to have the weight on them, which is, phenomenal for somebody who's lost an arm or has catastrophic upper body damage, a spinal injury high up. It's also very helpful for people with MS, which also tends to happen pretty frequently. And then we have a thing called a sip and puff. A sip and puff is literally that. It's a mechanism, it's a battery-operated, battery-activated solenoid that works with air. And we have a string that comes off of one end and goes around the trigger, and when the competitor either blows through it or sips or sucks through it, it retracts and pulls the trigger. So literally, you could have somebody that cannot move their arms, that really truly the only mechanism that they have to fire is their mouth, and they can shoot.
Excellent, Vanessa, thank you very much.
Thank you. God, I stumbled through that like
No, you were great. You were great. A lot of great information in there, especially about the equipment.